Hello, everybody. I am so delighted to welcome Tracy Wong to the podcast today. She hails from Malaysia. She's a choral conductor, music educator, vocalist, pianist, and composer who now lives in Toronto. Lucky for us. She is an assistant professor and choral director at McMaster University School of the Arts, where she conducts the university choir and Cantemus ensemble. She also serves as the conductor of the Grand Philharmonic Youth Choir in Kitchener, Ontario. She holds a DMA and a master's from U of T. She's an active clinician and educator. She's conducted workshops, I won't name all the countries, all over the world. Her choral works are currently published by Cyprus Choral Music in Canada, Young Choral Academy in Malaysia, and have been performed by Malaysian, North American, European, and Southeast Asian choirs at international competitions and festivals. I am so thrilled to speak with her today. Please welcome Tracy.
Hi, nice
How
to
are
meet you.
you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me here. This is exciting.
It is my absolute pleasure. I'm so excited to chat with you. I've always wanted to get to know you more, and today is my chance in front of a live audience. Perfect. So first of all, just tell us how you've been doing. How has the last 8 months looked for you, and how have you been navigating it all?
It's going. There's this, I think right now, because it's closer to end of term, I won't say the dust has settled. It's never settled in the first place, but I'm managing to catch my breath for a second and focus on individual students who need help. Also doing some assignment gradings that's all due very soon, and just starting to plan for what the next term might look like with flexibility in mind. And if you asked me that 2 months ago, I would have given a different answer and something else in summer as well. But I felt like we haven't stopped working during this pandemic, and just trying to balance it a little bit more with rest and work. And fingers crossed, we'll get there.
Good for you. Yeah, it's hard to keep that balance in mind when it feels like we have to pull out all the stops just to keep our art form alive at this time. Sure. It's easy to burn out. So I'm glad you're keeping it in perspective. Tell us about your journey to where you are now. You grew up in Malaysia. You came to Canada in 2013, I believe.
2013, yeah.
So how did all of that come about, and how has choral music been part of your life throughout your life?
I feel that I've always been surrounded by music, and I've got family members who are either I've got a cousin who's a music educator, and another aunt who is a math and science teacher. So the teachers in the family are there. My mom was a praise and worship leader, and I always follow her to church, and I'll see how she'll plan, like, this is the song list for this week, so let's practice. Here's a tambourine, go for it. So I had to learn on the job, and then learn to call up the wires at the end of the night. So just following my mom around. And my dad is not a musician, but he loves Celine Dion, and I think he's just secretly really happy I'm in Canada. But he has yet to watch Celine Dion in person, so I need to figure out how we're going to do that for him. But I just feel we are always surrounded with music at church and with my family. And we had choir in school. I'm a convent girl, and that's part of the British influence in Malaysia during our history. And my mom is a convent girl as well, so is my aunt, and it's a side of the family. My dad is in St. Michael's, and so is my uncles and his brother side of the family. So I'm in Ipoh, which is 2 hours from Kuala Lumpur. So it's a small tin mining town north of the Kuala Lumpur itself, and Ipoh is in a different state. So a lot of things that happen in Ipoh is very centered either on the arts or food and things that happen in the community. And it's a small place. We don't even have a movie theater till late in my high school. So if we had nothing to do, we just go rehearse with our friends, and there's a
Wow.
performing arts society, or we're at home, or we just hang out with our friends, or we study. So there's a lot of recreational activities that we do, and we don't have cable TV, so it's slightly different. But Michelle Yeoh is also a homegirl from Ipoh, so we're just really happy. I just had to put that in there because it's all in the performing arts, and she's a convent girl as well. We have a few convent schools around. So there's this tradition in convent schools, in Ipoh especially, that has a strong tradition in performing arts in terms of choir, choral singing, and also choral speaking. So choral speaking would be the speaking together of everyone collectively in an artistic manner in order to tell a story. And then you have like different lines of people doing different parts, and then we act it out, but we all have to do it as a group. And I thought it was just a Malaysian thing until I started talking to a friend of mine, Elaine Choi from Hong Kong, and she's like, we do choral speaking too. I was like, I think, yeah, it's a similar history.
Choral speech in Newfoundland.
Oh,
also a strong tradition of the nuns teaching in music schools and choral speech. It was at the Kiwanis Festival. It was this huge thing.
Yes, that's it. I never knew. So, and I was just thinking, what are these the sisters and my teachers trying to tell us to do? But I can see it as a way of us learning the language in an artistic way. And then in choir, taking it to another level and doing it in song. And that's helpful to understand as well. So I did learn both English and Malay formally from school. And I speak mostly English with my parents at home because that's what they speak as well. Although my mom is of a different dialect, Teochew. And my dad is of a different dialect, which is Cantonese. So I have a little mixed bag of that. So it kind of goes back and forth, like we're switching channels all the time. And then recently I was just texting my dad and I asked him, why do we speak so much English at home? And when we get upset, that's where all the dialect comes out, and he just said, well, because that's what I grew up with. And that's what your mom grew up with. And that's how we just communicate really comfortably. And then, of course, Malay as well is just all mixed in there. And that's how we talk to our neighbors and our friends and our teachers. If we're not sure whether the person we are speaking to is proficient in English, we default into Malay. So we just go in that direction. We start with Malay first and then English, unless we do know that person. So we did learn up to high school level in terms of literature, and prose and writing and grammar, so on and so forth for Malay, just as well as in English. And we had to also adopt the British Cambridge, the Oxford O and A level system as well in our English, into the system somehow. And we learn from there. So when it came to choir, we had to choose core curricular activities, and I wasn't really an extrovert. I'm a big introvert, and I thought I'm already learning piano since I was much younger, and I thought this music thing would just be an easy A. If I joined the choir, I was like, oh, such a horrible student. I thought I'd just join the choir and have fun and I'll get my A. And then it turns out that I'm one of the few who could play the piano, and then I got plunked on the piano. I was like, I didn't sign up for this. I wanted to sing, but they needed people. So we just went in that direction. So, oh, can you also play the national anthem every Monday as well? I was like, and then you need to learn the school song for Fridays. I was like, So then we started to figure out on the spot and to bring it to my teacher. But I realized all those chores ended up giving me opportunities to perform that I never knew that I liked in the first place. And I remember when I was 10, I auditioned for a school choir. I almost didn't go because I was so afraid. I hid in the girls' bathroom for the longest time. And I didn't go out till towards the end, and I just kind of creeped in because I had to just make peace with myself that, okay, I need to join the choir, but I don't know these people, and it was just such a big anxiety for me. So I just sat at the back, and I was like, okay, it's going to be done in 5 minutes. So if I'm in, I'm in. If not, I'm just running for the bus right there. But they said, yeah, just join. And okay, so it changed my perspective of being with people when I'm uncomfortable. So it was a social outlet for an introvert like myself. And that's why I stuck in choir. And for people who have been in choir, we never get out of choir. It's a trap. Once you're in choir, you're in. And I've been in choir throughout my primary and secondary school. and then in the community choir as well, because there's all these choral competitions that are so popular in Malaysia, and that's one way of actually getting the paperwork we need for scholarships as we put in our CCAs. So we go in that direction. And the thing about the Malaysian public school or government organized choir competitions is that everyone on stage has to be a student. And that means that the pianist has to be a student, the conductor has to be a student.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it has to be a DIY, but we are allowed to hire teachers or professionals to coach us. And it really depends on how much money the choir can raise as a CCA, as a club, to actually get that going. So I had to either play, or a friend of mine would conduct, and we'll just rehearse with each other. And there is a set list of, say, 20 patriotic songs, because it's a national choir competition. And it's just a 20 set list, and then it keeps changing every other year. But there's no set way of how to sing it or score. So it's entirely up to the choir on how you want to go with it, how creative you can be, and how many parts you can put in there before you break something, or how simple can you make it and still make it artistic. So a lot of times I had to arrange out of desperation, because we do not have the money to purchase scores, or we do not have an existing score of that particular piece of music we want to do. Or if one piece is always being done by a choir, we strike those out. We want to go for the ones that are not usually done.
Right.
And then how do we make it exciting? So I have to try and write it at home, and then figure it out. Okay, can you try and sing this? Can you try and sing this? I think it sounds okay. And I was like, thank heavens, I still have my training and my theory. That's really helpful. And we did the ABRSM training. It's just like the RCM here. So it is the Royal College Board, associated ABRSM. Yeah, so it's the British board.
The British version of the Royal Conservatory.
Exactly. So we go all the way to grade 8 for that one, and then diploma. So and I'm so thankful my dad didn't let me quit music, because I think about grade 5 or grade 6, that's like the breaking point where the harmony comes in, the analysis comes in, you like it, you don't like it. And then at some point I didn't do really well. And I think partly I chose not to do well, so I can send a message to my dad. And that's a horrible thing to do. But at the same time, my dad said, you wanted to be in music when you were younger. And how many levels are there in this exam? I said, until level 8, grade 8. Okay, you're going to do until grade 8. Because you have committed to it, you have to follow through it. After grade 8, if you want to quit, you quit. But you just have to finish the whole process and finish that learning, that journey of learning up to that level first. Then you can quit. So I never understood it until much later, when I had to use those ideas and apply it for this choir competitions that we need to do. And it was all pretty crappy, and I learned along the way, and I'm just thankful for patience from my friends who could help me figure it out as well. So that's where
so many leadership opportunities as a young person, just given that system. That's amazing that there were no adults, no teachers allowed on stage. Everyone had to be a student. So you were arranging the pieces, you were playing the piano, rehearsing the choir, choosing the songs. It sounds like it just sort of formed you in terms of becoming a choral leader, and that the environment was just perfect for that in the system you grew up in. And that choir was the sort of pastime of choice. As you were saying, there was no movie theater. So isn't that just amazing, and sort of what a kind of special upbringing that I don't think many people have in many areas of the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And then after that, going back in to start teaching choirs once I graduated with my undergrad, and realizing that I want to go back and teach choirs, then I have to start learning how to coach singers while coaching accompanists and coaching student conductors at the same time, because the process is still the same and I cannot be on stage. And how do I make sure that an excellent pianist in school is also an accompanist, how a student leader who has the ears and the coordination, the hand coordination to work with the singers actually gets the work done and shows music in their hands.
Right.
And that's something that it's now on the other side, but it's just interesting to have to unpack that But having the opportunity to do the final year of my undergrad studies in Australia was really helpful as well, and just opened my eyes. And I did a twinning degree, means that I started my undergrad in Malaysia, and then for the final year, I went over to Australia, to University of Newcastle, and that's 2 hours from Sydney as well, and by the beach, and that's wonderful. And it's my first time out of the country to study and to live for a short while and to be immersed in music. So that was an eye-opener, and to sing with the chorus there, that sounded so beautiful as well. And then coming back to realize I wanted to do the things that my choral mentors were doing, and it's like, now I know what I want to do. I want to be like them. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but let me just start by shadowing some of my mentors first.
Oh, wow. And was that in Australia or back in Malaysia?
Back in Malaysia. We couldn't afford to stay longer. And initially I wanted to do a postgrad, but we couldn't afford to stay longer there. So I had to come back and work and make sure that I can still pay bills. And then started working with teaching piano and voice and working with choirs. I never saw myself as a conductor yet, but more like a person who needs to get the job done so that the choir can perform. So, and after a while, I think a few years down the road, 5-6 years, my teacher was just saying, have you ever considered studying conducting? Some of your peers have gone on to grad school. And I never felt ready to go back in yet, because I felt I needed a little bit more experience to understand what I was doing, and to also acquire the money that is going to cost, because international fees is 3 times the amount of domestic fees wherever we go and study, unless we get a scholarship. But then we have to consider cost of living and things like that as well. So, and my dad is an accountant, so it's really like, are you getting all that investment back? I was like, oh no. So we have to start to figure that out as well. So yeah.
And how, other than your dad loving Celine Dion, what drew you to Toronto?
Dr. A, I have to say, there's one, because I knew I wanted to work with a leader and a mentor that would be really direct with helping me grow, but at the same time, nurturing in a way who would be understanding that there are gaps in my learning, that because I'm just so removed from a North American style of education, that I may not have had some of the experiences some other students would be getting. And I remember going into my interview, and she was asking me, what are some areas that you feel you want to work more on? And I just said, choral literature in general and sacred music, because I don't get to do a lot of it in Malaysia. Malaysia has Islam as the official religion. So a lot of times when we do sacred music, of course, it's within the churches, but we don't necessarily have the extra opportunity to really unpack, like say, Mass in B minor or a bigger requiem, for example, unless we take like a short trip over to Philippines or to a neighboring country that has those sort of workshops that we can go for and just sing and be immersed in that experience. And I say, we do a lot of secular music and folk music, but I think I need to balance that scale a little bit more with sacred music. And it's so beautiful to sing. And I grew up Catholic, and I feel like I need to know more about my music as well that we do. So there's that juxtaposition right there. But other than that, it's also because Canada, I've never been to North America before or stayed there before. So I felt that it was far enough away from Malaysia that it becomes too expensive to quit. It's strange. It's very, very strange. I was like, okay, if I'm going that far and that remove, I'm paying so much for it. So to make it work, because if the master's was 2 years, I always remind myself whenever I have to trudge through minus 20 degrees of snow and wind chill, that and I feel like I want to go home, and I just always have to tell myself, I didn't come so far to just give up because of this. So I just have to remind myself that, and I came with 2 bags and off we go. It took me 2 years to transition my choirs to my mentors and to my colleagues before I actually could leave that and come over here. Just to kind of make sure I wrap up all my work, and because I'm not sure when I will be going back and if I can go back for summer because it's expensive. But also for the leadership as well. I almost didn't make it to U of T because initially I turned down the offer for the final audition, and because it was so far, and I realized I had to get a special visa to get in. By the
Oh
time
my
I get
God.
the visa, then I'll miss the audition, and I don't know when I can fly in, things like that. So I actually sent an email back to Dr. A, and I said, thank you for the offer, but I feel like maybe this is not the right time for me. It's good to know that this is where I am now, and thank you for seeing me and for acknowledging that I am worthy of grad school, and I'll continue to work on it. And then I hit send, and then I went downstairs and made my coffee, and then I just burst into tears, and I don't know why. And I called up a good friend, and he's like, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "I don't know. I think I just made the wrong move." And he said, "So what are you gonna do about it?" I said, "I think I need to just send another email." And he said, "So what's stopping you?" I said, "Well, I don't think I'm gonna make it on the audition in time, and it's $2,000, and I don't know whether she wants to see me after the audition period, because I knew she needs to follow her schedule." And he's like, just give it a try. What's the worst that could happen? You lose $2,000, and you can always make back $2,000 down the road. Would you gonna kick yourself for not having this experience and giving yourself a shot? So I said, okay, you're right. Then I went back up, I sent an apology email. I'm so sorry about my last email. Would you be able to accommodate in some way? So this is the situation I have now. So long story short, I went in later to U of T for my audition. And that's where I met her. I met Melissa Morgan, and to just go around U of T and realize that it's a really good place for me to just let my mind play and just be immersed in that. Yep. And she did ask me, why do you want to go back to school after you're doing so much work in Malaysia? And I said, sometimes it comes to a point where I feel like I'm recycling information that I feel I'm running on empty, and I need to just focus on me after this many years and go back and learn more. So that was helpful to have.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was but a many-year journey.
8 years, I think. Point. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, I didn't know that. Well, we're so thankful that you sent that email.
I know.
Now Canada gets to enjoy your many talents, which include arranging. I may be mistaken, but I think you're probably best known in this part of the world for your arrangements of Southeast Asian folk music. You mentioned that, close friends can call you the Wabulan lady, but and those arrangements are flying off the shelves, and choirs all across Canada and the US are performing these Malaysian pieces that you've arranged. So what does that feel like?
It's really unexpected. And I do enjoy arranging because it's a nice challenge of being given something and then having to make something else out of it. So it's like, what can you do with an egg, for example? So that's the same with melody. And then with hopefully my experience as a singer, I can start to unpack what I feel would be satisfying to sing. And if I like singing those lines, then therefore I think it's okay and doable for other singers as well. And I started in high school in alto too. And then later on, I took voice lessons slightly later. I think I was 19 with my choir teacher because my voice just wasn't developed yet. And then slowly worked towards a diploma, and I'm a soprano 1. So I'm trying to also unpack the experience of different choirs who's trying to sing this, and trying to think that if there is a singer in the choir who's working on their vocal development and they're in alto too, I can't have them just sing 10 bars of ooh and not help to figure something out. So what makes it exciting for everyone? And I was trying to sing each line as well to make sure that it's satisfying artistically and technically as well. But I also got the experience of writing arrangements and realizing there's a world of amazing and this brilliant Southeast Asian choral music arrangements from neighboring countries. And I think in Malaysia, we're still, I won't say in its infancy, but more in toddlerhood. We're growing a little bit now. But compared to our friends in Thailand and Indonesia and the Philippines, with a steeper and longer choral tradition and beautiful choral literature and repertoire as well, we look to them, and I look to a lot of my colleagues and mentors from different countries as well, to see how they write the music that they do, how they put in folkloric elements in their writing as well. How does the coming together of a Western music training that I have and they have, and how does that correspond with being immersed in the culture, but not really acknowledging or performing it or writing it as much, and then now trying to put it back in. Where do we find the balance in that? And both of it is equally enjoyable. But one of the experiences that helped me understand it a little bit better was being a part of the Asia Pacific Youth Choir. And that is actually, it's like the World Youth Choir, but Asian region. And it's also by IFCM, so International Federation of Choral Music. Yeah. So we call it the elders in the region decided to form a working committee. And it's very much similar, where they send an audition, and they'll probably get a soprano, alto, tenor, and bass from each of the the Asia Pacific countries. So in its first year, I think this was like 10 years ago. So I was the first batch in from Malaysia, and that's I was in there for 2 years, and then I got too old. I managed to get in there and to meet the Southeast Asian conductors who bring music from their home country to teach us. So we go through, we were in China at that time, and we had a choir camp for 2 weeks, and then we went traveling. So it's like an honor choir of how we have it in Canada as well, like a national youth choir, but it's more of the regional level there. So we had to English all the way, because everyone spoke different dialects, and we learned so much about everyone's language and culture through the music itself, based on the recommendations of our mentor conductors who came in. We call them the elders, and just unpacking the experience and working with some of the composers even flew in to work with us there, because the composers are also singers, are also pianists. So it's an everythinger, and we never knew that there would be different people who could do different things, but we knew a one package deal was pretty common sometimes in the choral world there. So it's helpful to learn from that. And I came back and I said, okay, I need to figure this out a little bit more. This is really exciting. And then 10 years down the road, next year, I'm going to be the co-conductor of the Asia Pacific Youth Choir.
Wow.
Just going back in as an alum, and the first alum to go back in as a co-conductor. That'll be pretty exciting. Yeah, to go back to Malaysia to do that.
Wow. Isn't that a full circle moment?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So will you perform some of your own music?
Yeah, I got to write it. Yeah, it'll be fun. Those are exceptional singers, and I know they're up for the task. They'll be great.
Oh, that's so exciting. Yeah. And you also then have to balance, as the conductor, I would imagine, choosing repertoire from the whole range of countries who are represented in that choir, and how to incorporate the folk elements, like you say, into the Western style.
And they're also thinking, can you bring some Canadian music over? I was like, oh gosh, yeah, sure. So I got to think of different ways I can unpack the experience as well, because that will be something that the singers would love to learn. And we're trying to expand the boot camp session to learning about music from their perspective, and also teaching the singers how to also be leaders in the community. So we are also teaching musicianship and warm up and section lead and leadership skills, and try to partner them with satellite choirs in our community in Malaysia, where they actually go out and teach their own folk songs from their country to the kids in that particular school. So we're expanding the program to make sure that the information doesn't stop at the singer as well, that they can continue learning and teaching the community.
Wow. Just like the experience for you has stayed with you and influenced you going forward.
Yeah,
that's amazing to make sure that happens to everyone. Cool. Yeah. Wow. How do you balance the folk elements with, you've talked about writing well for all the voice parts, and you do that in such an expert way. I've conducted some of your music, and every part has an interesting line. All the singers enjoy it. There's often choreography. How do you, I guess, what is your experience in the traditional elements, and how did it take a lot of research? Is it just sort of in your blood because you grew up in Malaysia, that you know these folk songs and the style that they're meant to be sung in, the movement as well? Or did that take us sort of going back to roots to discover that and incorporate it into your current work?
Yes, to everything. It's a little bit of everything, actually. In my particular school, there are many different convent schools in Ipoh. Mine would be considered one of the poorer ones, or because we're so close to some of the Malay villages as well, that we always are immersed in the music and the traditions or any of the festivities that goes on there. But we do have cultural studies in school during my time. That means the art teacher talks to the music teacher, talks to the phys ed teacher, and then talks to whatever activities teacher for the week who has to do the announcements. So if, say, for one week they say, we're going to sing Wow Bulan in the staff room, someone just declares that and they figured it out. That means in the art class, we have to learn how to make our national kite. And that's like probably a 2-week process to just go around trying to find bamboo, or you could steal it from your neighbor or something like that. And then learning how to do the batik and the textile. So learning the intricacies of what wax painting would be, using canvas and then putting on that. If the kite doesn't fly, we fail. So we have to really know how to do all these things, which is fun for us. We like that challenge because it feels like play. And then when we go to phys ed, then we start to learn things about, we play kites, which is great. That helps because it feels like play again. But we also learn some of the games, playground games that we do, various versions of tag, or I can't remember a lot of the other things that we used to play, different versions of patty cake. So that's part of phys ed. And then, of course, in music class, then we learn Wow Bulan, the song itself. And then for a dance, the teachers would get one of the other teachers who was more of an expert in the cultural dance movement to come in to teach us on that as well. So the teachers kind of trade off classes in that way. I can see that. Before that, I was like, why do we get different teachers each time? But now I see like they're helping each other out as well. So that's helpful. So every other week we have a different piece of music that we learn. And in music class, when we do singing, we always sing. There's a syllabus of the traditional folk songs that we have to learn as well. And then we draw pictures, and it's all in play. But now it's so ingrained that it is part of my childhood, I have to say, to learn about that. And then outside of school, I'm learning ABRSM style music, and then trying to make sense of that, but not in, I didn't bring it to the forefront of my mind because I didn't know what I was experiencing. I was just taking it all in. But once I had to start arranging it, I had to start thinking back on how did my teacher approach it that way? Why did I like singing it? How do I notate this? And how do I transcribe it when there's all this ornamentation going on? Does it really fit in a 4/4, or should I be a little bit more loose with how I'm interpreting it? And then different teachers are singing it a different way as well. So that's where it is. We also have some cultural festivities where we learn how to dance, music of various ethnicities as well, because we're a polyethnic society in Malaysia. And one thing I like to remind my friends when we're learning music from Malaysia is that not every Malaysian folk music sounds like the other. Or experiencing one Malaysian folk music doesn't mean that that is representative of all Malaysian folk music as well. It really depends on the state that folk music came from, the dialect of that state, and the style and the ethnic culture. I mean, the ethnic community who prize that piece of music so much, and how we're going to do it justice. Wow. So whenever I can go back to Malaysia this past few years during the summer, I re-enroll into dance school, and I get one of my friends who is the choreographer of the National Youth Dance Troupe to work with me and to teach me a few more things that I need to learn. Hands, being still, movement, things like that. And one of the biggest experiences for me was just to sit and listen to a piece of music and move to the music, because that is part of one of the mengadap redang, that is a royal court sort of dance and movement. And I just waited there, and he said, okay, so you're going to move when you hear the gong. I was like, okay. Then I waited. And then I just looked over at him and I said, how many bars and how many beats before the gong comes in? And he's like, excuse me. And I said, how many beats do I just need to count to make sure? He's like, you don't count for the gong, you wait for the gong. And that I was so mind blown at the same time that I've always approached music in such a metrical way and such a measured way that everything has to be translated. But that's the only way my brain could function because of my Western upbringing. But now I have to be immersed in the experience and just go with it and realize that that's the learning process that has to happen. So it is it's beautiful that I can collaborate with my friends back in Malaysia for this and just to learn again.
Wow. And that's amazing that it's not only about making the music on the surface level sound right, but it's about the process and the way that you think about the music that is informing what you do and how you incorporate
Totally.
those
Yeah.
traditions.
Yeah.
Amazing. Oh, so cool. Okay, so fast forward to now, you are the director of choirs at a prominent Canadian university. You are doing workshops all over the world when we can fly around the world, but which is not at the moment. But when you can do that, you are in high demand. What does that? Do you feel a weight that you carry, or a responsibility as a female leader, as a woman of color who is trailblazing? Do you sense that weight as you're doing all these amazing things?
In a way, yes. I also feel the weight of being a culture bearer as well. And being a Malaysian who has the lived experience and have a varied lived experience in my Malaysian culture, and then now being in Canada where I have the Western music training to actually work with choirs, and then trying to marry that together. I feel responsible for Malaysian music and making sure that I'm doing it right as well. That I'm translating the information correctly to those who need to learn it. Because eventually when it goes on YouTube and out there, and if it goes into the papers and someone from home reads it and my name's attached to it, did I do a good job in transmitting that information of what my experience was and what other research I had to do to actually approach that as well, even though I'm Malaysian and even though I speak the language, and I still need to do the work on my side. And then after that, of course, I won't say the burden or weight, but it's a good responsibility to have. To be a female leader in a community and in any community as well. And I never saw myself that way until students would have to tell me, this is wonderful to see you. I see myself in you. I see my face in your face. Things that I would never have experienced, because back in Malaysia, every other person looks like me. And it's different in a way, yet encouraging. Because when I first came to Canada, I felt very much like a guest. And I felt a little bit nervous and hesitant about sharing my music and my culture because I was worried about taking up space. And I just come from a culture where, oh no, don't shake things up, don't basically just lay low and get the job done. And that's how it is. And be a good person and be a good member of society. And I think it was from the immense support from various conductors and mentors and also colleagues who say that let's have you do your work a little bit more. Let's listen to your music a little bit more. Come and teach us. That I'm slowly starting to realize there is an interest in Malaysian choral music. And I was like, oh, maybe people didn't know about Malaysian choral music before this. I was like, maybe I'll just share what I know. And then it just took on a life of its own. And now I'm that wow, Bunan lady, like you mentioned, that people keep saying. And it's nice to be able to carry a few flags and to champion that. And before, when I led with fear, now I lead with a little bit more hope. Because of the reassurance of people who are supportive of me. And I just have a great support system in Canada to remind me, yes, keep doing what you do. And I'm just really thankful for the experience now being a Canadian immigrant with a permanent resident status, that it's a wonderful place to be supported for sure. And when I talked to Dr. Lorianne Doloff, I said, I'm not, and it was at the precipice of where music's going to happen and it's going to take places, it's going to go places. And I talked to Dr. Lorianne Doloff and I said, what do I do? Am I ready for this? I don't know. It's just me who knows what to do with this. And what do I do with this music? And all she said was, if the time comes and you have the mic, you take the mic. And then you may not have that after that. So I remember that too.
Wow. That is so inspiring. Thank you for sharing that. And I know that your students must feel so inspired by your presence, whether it's top of mind that is your role as a leader or not. I know that it means a lot to young people to see role models, because we don't always have role models to look up to who look like us, like you say. Yeah, thank you. Well, Tracy, this has been just such a pleasure. I feel like I could ask you so many more detailed things about your work, but let's do that another time. Let's chat more. Your music speaks for itself. We'll post some links to your music and your performances. They are just phenomenal pieces of choral music, and I've heard them now performed at all kinds of festivals by all kinds of choirs. It's really taking off. So I think you're absolutely right that there is demand for learning more about Malaysian choral music, for singing your arrangements, for getting to know you. And your presence is such a wonderful one in Canada. We're so lucky to have you
so
here.
Much. And thank you for this platform to have all these conversations. Congratulations to you and Amadeus Choir for being so innovative during this crazy time, and providing such varied content that we can always look to and just remind ourselves why we do what we do as well. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Much appreciated. Well, take care, Tracy. Bye, everyone.
Bye.